Hi there! Welcome to this GES online mini English lesson. Today we're talking about questions. We're talking about the different types of questions there are and their word order. We can group questions into 4 different types depending on what we do to an affirmative sentence to turn it into a question. The first type is made up of questions with a verb to be or modal verbs. The second type are questions in verb tenses that use an auxiliary verb, like the present perfect tense. The third type of question is formed by adding the verb to do. And the last type of question gets a question word like who as its subject. The first type of question we're going to look at is when questions are made by changing the word order of sentences that contain the verb to be or a modal verb. The different forms of the verb to be include am, is, and are for the simple present tense, and was and were for the simple past tense. Modal verbs don't have different forms that change according to the pronoun or the subject of a sentence. They stay the same. Examples are should, could, can, and would. Affirmative sentences usually start with a subject, like John, or the transport manager, for example, or they start with a pronoun like he or she. After the subject, we have a verb, and since we're talking about the first question type, it will be a modal verb or a form of the verb to be. When we make a question, we switch this order around. For example, he is switches to is he to make a question. Let's look at an example. In this sentence, John is late. We have the subject, John, followed by is, which is the singular form of the verb to be in the present simple tense. To make a question, we simply put the verb is in front of the subject, John. Is John late? We do the same thing with modal verbs. She can changes to can she to make a question. Like in this example, Jill can attend the meeting. To turn this into a question, we switch the modal verb can with the subject Jill. Can Jill attend the meeting? Let's take a look now at how we make questions in verb tenses where you have a main verb and an auxiliary verb, like the present perfect and the present continuous tenses. Remember that the present perfect simple is made up of the verb to have as the auxiliary verb and the past participle of the main verb. The present continuous tense gets the verb to be as the auxiliary verb and the main verb has an ing ending. When we make questions in these tenses, it is the auxiliary verb that switches with the subject in the sentence. Here's an example of how that works in the present perfect simple tense. James has been away. James is the subject, has is the auxiliary verb, and been is the past participle of be, which is the main verb in the sentence. To make the question, we put has in front of James. Has James been away? We do the same with the present continuous tense. They are negotiating. Negotiating is the main verb with an ing ending, and are is the auxiliary verb. Switch are with the subject pronoun they, and you get the question, are they negotiating? If you want your question to get a more detailed response, you can use a question word before the verb. This applies to both of the question types we have just talked about. The question words are what, when, where, why, and how. With type 1 questions, just put a question word before the verb be or the modal verb. So if you want to know the reason John is late, you would ask, why is John late? Or if you want to know the date or time that Jill is able to attend the meeting, you can ask, when can Jill attend the meeting? For type 2 questions, put the question word before the auxiliary verb. Do you want to know what place James went to just a little bit earlier? Ask, where has James been? And if you want to know about the things they are busy with right now, you can ask, what are they doing? Let's look at the third question type. With this one, we actually add in a new verb instead of just reordering the ones we already have in the sentence. We do this with single word verb phrases where it wouldn't make sense not to have an auxiliary verb. So we add in the form of the verb to do as an auxiliary to be able to form a question that makes sense. Here you can see the affirmative sentence, we have a deal. It wouldn't make sense to just switch the verb and the subject pronoun like we do for type 1 questions, because then we would end up with, have we a deal? So here we bring in the form of the verb to do as used with plural subjects in the present simple tense. That is do. Put do before we and you get the question, do we have a deal? So how would that work in the past tense? Let's have a look. They agreed on a price. Because the sentence is in the simple past tense, we use the corresponding form of the verb to do, which is did. Did they agree on a price? Just like you can use question words with question types 1 and 2 to get more information from the answer, you can also add a question word to type 3 questions. If you want to know at what time the train departs, begin your question with when. When does the train depart? If you're asking about the place in which someone filed an invoice, ask, where did you file the invoice? The fourth and last type of question is a little bit different to the others, in that this type of question is designed to find out information about the subject of the sentence and not the object. With this kind of question, we use a question word itself as the subject of the question. This is also the only type of question where we don't change the word order of an affirmative sentence to make the question. Here are 2 examples. In the first, we want to know which person made a call to the client. So we use the question word who to refer to the person that made the call. Who called the client? The question structure is the same as in an affirmative sentence. We have who as the subject, followed by called, the verb. What made that sound? Here we want to know which thing was responsible for making a certain sound. We hope that this GES online mini lesson helped you understand questions a lot better. For more mini lessons like this, to watch any of our 2-minute English Bites grammar revision videos, or to sign up for one of our amazing online courses, please visit us at www.ges-educonsultants.com. Thanks for watching. See you soon.